educational system is not, as the affirmative would have you believe, the fault of the teachers. Is America's education failing? Yes. Do we need to stop it from this failure? Yes. Is the way to stop it by making it even more unappealing to be a teacher, by putting restrictions on compensation, tenure, evaluation, and certification? No. Our opponents will try to scare you into believing that teachers are the main cause of bad schools, but this simply is not true. Resolve that the United States federal government should enact a policy to significantly improve the quality of teaching via one or more of the following areas: compensation, tenure/job security, teacher training/certification, and evaluation. As defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, significantly means having or likely to have a great influence or effect. Also defined by Merriam-Webster, via means by way of or through. There are many factors that lead to a bad school, most of which do not relate at all to teachers in any way, shape, or form. More specifically, the changing of teachers via these areas is going to have little to no effect on the school environment as a whole. There is need for change. We do concede to that. But the change needed is not the teachers, but the effective use of the resources that the education system does not utilize properly. America spends $77,660,000 on education every year, according to the CIA World Factbook. Yet, schools are still failing miserably. If this money were allocated in a more effective manner, schools would not be failing. The affirmative might say that giving more money isn't going to change the way education works. Yet we are not calling for more money, just the more effective use of it. Margaret Haderman, author of several books, those titled School Productivity and School-Based Budgeting, states that teacher salaries, more than 60% of school budgets, increased nearly 21% from 1981 to 1990. Any plan that allocates more money to teachers through systems such as merit pay will not help America in the bettering of the educational environment of students, considering that the General Accounting Office of the National Education Association estimates that more than 14 million children are being taught in schools that need major repairs. This is what's causing the failure of our education system: poor schools lacking supplies with no means to do anything about it. Considering the real issue at hand, the lack of funding for the educational system as a whole, reforming teachers will cost billions of dollars, literally. According to a 2007 report by the National Committee on Teaching and America's Future, it takes at least $7 billion to replace teachers and for teacher turnover in general. It's a little cliched to say, I know, but America is attempting to escape a horrible economic recession, and reforming teachers is just too expensive. In addition, there are current reforms in place, namely President Obama's new Race to the Top plan, which gives monies to schools with realistic reformation plans to help students get the education they deserve. However, money is not the only issue here. The issue we should focus on as well is not teachers, but it's outside classroom influences that are causing problems in the education system. It's taboo, even politically incorrect, but another major issue in schools is the drug scene. As I previously mentioned, there are 14 million children taught in decrepit, falling apart schools. These schools are the ones that have the most issues with drug problems. You may be thinking, where does the drug abuse come into play in education? But it's a serious issue that affects school settings. If the campus on which you go to school is full of drugs and other illegal substances, as most schools are, considering that 30.3% of 8th graders have used drugs, while 44.9% of 10th graders have, and 52.8% of 12th graders have, it is much more difficult to concentrate in school with all this drug usage around. According to Forbes.com, cities such as Las Vegas and New Orleans are drug capitals of the world, and it's no wonder that their graduation rates are 51.3% and 63.5% respectively, some of the lowest in the entire country. The correlation between drug usage and successful education is obvious. It's not the teacher's fault that the students are dropping out, but the environment in which they are placed that is failing these kids. Maybe you aren't yet convinced that the cause of the failing education system in America is is the lack of funding and school environments, and maybe you are convinced that it is the teachers' faults. To that I'd like to say, how is America's teaching failing because of copious amounts of tenure, or lack of compensation, or poor evaluations? A term earlier defined was via, meaning through. Through these areas is how we're going to effectively change the quality of teachers. A new term that I would like to define is teaching, which means giving the information about or instruction in. Tell me this, affirmative. How does changing the tenure system, or paying teachers more to fake high test scores, or receiving student feedback, which we can all agree will be biased, affect the giving of information to students? It won't. As you can see, the skewed statistics and scare tactics of the affirmative are just that, tactics. In reality, the graduation rates in America, on average, is about 70%, which is not perfect, but far from the catastrophe that the affirmative wants you to think it is. We can see that education is failing, but it really isn't because of the teachers. The lack of funding and bad school settings are what truly make the educational system the problem that it is. We need to do something about it, but it's nearly impossible to prove that teachers are the cause of all the bad results of America's educational system. Thank you, and vote negative.